Recorded live from the alley behind Willie McGillicuddies pub, it's the Photo Happy Hour podcast. Hey everybody, Michael Mowbray here. Welcome to the Photo Happy Hour podcast. Happy to have you guys here. I'm one of your hosts. I'm here along with Dan Frievalt and Carl Caylor. Say hi, guys.
What's up, everyone?
Hey, folks. Carl Caylor here.
So, we're having our drinks. What are you guys drinking?
Coffee. I'm sorry.
Carl's working off a bender already.
Yeah.
I went and opened a bottle of Zinfandel for this.
Oh, wow. I feel bad. But no, I got to do coffee today. Yeah. This time. Who knows, by the end of the podcast, maybe I'll be drinking something else.
Yeah, we may have to take a little liquor break.
That is true. I think so. I'm actually drinking water, but I'm going to switch it up here shortly too.
Did you guys read the notes about what we're doing in this podcast? I'm not sure if you...
Well, we got so drunk last time that I got to pace myself this time.
Truth be told, we are recording this a little earlier than we normally do, but I'm holding up my end. I've got my nice bottle of Zinfandel and my glass of Zinfandel here. So anyway, the concept as always is that we drink a little bit and then we talk about photography and maybe you guys learn a little bit. Maybe we're semi-entertaining. And in the end, hopefully it's a good spending of your timeage. How's that for coining a phrase? Yeah.
Official term.
Topic for today, we're going to talk about studios. We're going to talk about having a brick and mortar retail studio versus having a home studio and some of the pros and cons of setting up either and running either. And we all have different varieties here. I have a home studio. I call it a residential studio. And that's one of the things we talk about a lot in our industry is using the right terminology. We don't talk about pictures. We talk about images and portraits. I don't talk about home studio necessarily. I talk about a residential studio. It just happens to be in a residential area. So I have a residential studio I built onto my home in 2004. Oh my God, it's been that long now. 16 years. Holy crap. I still think of it as being new. And then Carl, what do you have?
I built...
He's got a tent in the woods.
Yeah. It's a tarp, eh? It's actually a residential studio as well. But my wife and I chose this location, this lot for this studio. So it's a walkout basement. So people can drive up on ground level, enter the studio, enter into the camera room, and they have no idea, other than the fact that the kids are running around upstairs, that we do have a residence there as well. So, but the residence entrance is on top of the hill, separate driveways, keep everything kind of in its own location. But it's funny because people think about home studios or residential studios, and it's smaller. It's not going to be the same in camera room size as a brick and mortar, but I think you guys agree. I have a pretty good sized camera room.
Heck yeah.
20-foot ceilings, and it's all north light, so it faces out into the north and got good light in there, and
you can see Canada from there.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, on a good night.
You can see turkeys and wildlife. No, it's an absolutely beautiful studio and heated floor as well, which is quite nice. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I think if I worked in your studio, Carl, I'd take a nap on the floor every day.
It's happened before.
As a matter of fact, I think I have taken a nap on your floor before.
Actually, come to think of it, I think you have.
I believe I did.
Yeah.
It may have been liquor induced. I'm not sure.
No judging. Not judging.
And then Dan, you're the Lone Ranger of the three of us. What do you got?
Yes, I have a retail space. It is a former daycare that we remodeled and gutted and turned into a studio so I could have 10-foot ceilings. So we ripped out all of the tile, the sound tile, the drop ceiling, I guess you would say. And yeah, I ripped a lot of wallpaper of little like, yeah, not a fun job at all. But
No.
yeah, all the little animals and farm animals, and there were stickers everywhere. It was, yeah, it was. I still have nightmares of removing stickers from all the doors and everywhere. There's stickers. So yeah, I have a more of, I guess you would call, a brick and mortar retail space, and it's nice. Like, there's benefits, there's pros and cons to each, and I guess that's what we're going to talk about as well.
Yeah, let's get into that. Because when I was looking to do my studio, I went full time in photography in 2001, and most of my work was on location, doing weddings, seniors, families on location. I did have a small studio I built in my basement, but quickly grew the business and outgrew that space. It was kind of hard when you have a 7.5-foot ceiling in your basement and you got a 4x6 softbox in there. And it had beautiful soft light, but basically that was half my studio was my softbox, and I'd put people right on top of it, and it was like, oh wow, this is gorgeous light, but I hope you like this light because that's the only kind of light I can do right now because I can't move anything. So looked into retail and looked into adding on to our house. Luckily we have a half acre lot and pretty big backyard. And as I explored all the options, felt to me like the best idea was to invest into the home, to get a bigger home. Now, that being said, we added 1,600 square feet onto our house just for the business and almost doubled the size of our house. And now we're way overbuilt for our neighborhood. We're a lot bigger than anybody else in the neighborhood. So it's going to be tough to get all that money back if we ever sell. On the flip side, yeah, maybe it's, going to be appealing to somebody who maybe wants to do a home daycare or a karate studio or a mini bowling alley or or an axe throwing range.
Axe throwing, aerial dance.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah. But yeah, and as far, I went through all different thoughts when I started over, and home studio, do I not do a home studio? And I'm still, every single year, I'm like, I'm paying all this money on a retail space. Is it really worth it? Because everyone in Wisconsin wants outdoor photos to begin with. And all winter long, it's pretty slow, and I teach and travel a lot. So I'm not really using the studio as efficiently as I could, but it does give me a nice presence. The location's pretty decent. Right across the street is the high school and the middle school, and I'm also attached to a dance studio, which doesn't hurt. Yeah. I mean, I wish I would get a little bit more from all that, but it's nice, and I enjoy having a little separate space from the home. But I'm always looking. I'm looking every month, as you guys know. It's like, hey, I think maybe I found a house that we could do a home studio, out of. But the nice thing is I go month to month with my lease, and that's nice. And those are some of the things to kind of watch for if you are looking for a retail space, signing a long-term contract, and contracts with triple net lease, where you have to pay not only the lease, you have to pay the property taxes, as well as split snow removal, camp fees, which is common area maintenance. And all those things really add up. So when and then every year that increases by like a couple percentage points or whatever. So really look at lease things and really look at all the little things that they put in there in a lease, because I've gotten, I don't want to say burned by that in the past, but it was a whole lot more expensive. And every year that goes up. I'm very fortunate. I've been in this space for 8 years, and he just raised my rate by $50 a month this year. Otherwise, it's been the same all along, and everything's included. And he owns the building. He's a construction guy that owns the building, so he treats me really well. And but those are some of the things you have to think about when you're looking at doing a retail space.
Well, it's the same with any investment you make in your business. You need to take a look at what the total real cost will be, because too often I see, well, the rent's going to be, I see people post in forums, well, it's only going to be $1,000 a month, and I'm like, yeah, but as you mentioned, people don't know about triple net and having to pay taxes and stuff beyond that. Or there's going to be an increase in insurance. There's going to be, maybe you need to put in a security system because, gee, maybe somebody would break into that place and rip off all your cameras and lenses and sell them on eBay. You know, that could happen. We've got friends we know that have been hit a few times.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other costs. So, you know, make sure you're doing all the research if you're looking at retail, and find out what all the costs are, because that goes right into the whole business aspect of it. PPA runs research studies every few years. And one of the things, if you've got a brick and mortar studio, their recommended profit margin and their recommended gross sales are much higher for a brick and mortar, because you've got to cover all those additional costs. And too many people don't think about that.
Definitely. I mean, we looked at the same thing when I moved to the area I'm at now. I moved from the Green Bay area, 110 miles straight north. The heck was I thinking? But here we are, and actually we were looking for homes. We were looking for brick and mortar studio space, and in looking at commercial buildings, even back in 98, 99. Here where we are, we're somewhat, it's amazing what the prices are for this stuff. But at that time, even it was $1,400 a month for a 1,100 foot square area. And
Wow.
I mean, it's insane. We're in Iron Mountain, Michigan, for crying out loud. It's crazy. You're never going to get your return on investment with that. And so I decided, hey, if we're going to be paying $1,400 for that tiny little room, and I still need to find a place to live. Okay, well, even if, I mean, for a $2,500 mortgage, we could have one heck of a studio, way bigger and nicer and customized to what I wanted, compared to the spaces that we were finding. And we also have a place to live. It's covered. Not to mention the fact that there is a huge amount of, I mean, there's pros and cons. There's no question about that. But in the pro side, there's a lot of things that with the residential area that you can write off and you can make work for you tax wise. And of course, there's some cons to that as well. I mean, you have
both sides.
Yeah, you can only have so many, a percentage of your place actually work for business, and the other has to be residential, and that was an issue here because of the zoning. So you definitely, by all means, before you even think about maybe doing a residential studio, you check with your zoning board, your community first, because we already had purchased the land because it was commercial land, and figuring no problem, we can have a studio there. That's not a big deal at all. But then come to find out, it's only commercial 300 feet from the highway. Anything when you get past that, then it falls into residential, and then you have to get a conditional use permit. Well, that conditional use permit means you have to, all the neighbors within a certain square mile radius have to be notified, and has to be notified multiple times, and that there's going to be a meeting at the zoning board. Then you got to go to the meeting of the zoning board and try to get this conditional use permit. And what happened with us, it almost scared the crap out of me, because we got to the meeting and the people that we filled out the paperwork with said, this is going to be a slam dunk, don't worry about it, it's just a formality. Well, we got there and the whole board was sitting up at the table in front of the meeting, and it came time for my thing to hit the docket, and the board all sat there and got silent and looked through the papers and paged through it all and everything and hemmed and hawed. And then one of the guys on the board said, well, I don't think this is going to work. There's a problem with this. And I'm thinking, what? And he said, this is a picture place. I said, is Mr. Caylor here? And I said, yeah, I'm right in the audience. He said, do you make pictures there? And I said, what do you mean by making pictures? I mean, do I take them? Yeah, I'm going to create pictures, but I mean, I'm going to take pictures out on location and things like that. He said, no. Do you make pictures? And I thought, oh, he's worried about chemicals and stuff. That's what I said. Oh, I said, no. I said, I send my stuff to the lab, and they send it back to me. There's no chemicals. There's nothing that's going to hurt the environment. And he said, well, then you can't do this. And I thought, what are you talking about? according to most conditional use permits, and make sure you check into this, because if you do not produce your product on site, you cannot sell it. Yeah, we had to get beyond that. So he's like, "Do you do black and white stuff?" And at the time, I was putting in my black and white darkroom and everything. I said, "Yeah, I actually make those here." And he says, "Okay, do you print your color pictures?" No. He said, "Well, then you can't sell color pictures." I was like, "Come on."
What?
So and then he got into
I
framing.
have a
Do you
box
make
of crayons. We can,
exactly? Well, it turns out he was, yeah, he was on the board, but he was also a business person in town. He owned the frame shop in town. And he didn't want to lose business to the
Oh,
frame shop. That's where it's all coming from. So, but moral of the story is you got to check all these things out before you start your residential studio, because there's a lot of zoning permits. I mean, percentage of square footage, how many cars can be parked there at a time. You can only have, supposed to only have room for yourself and 2 other people. You can only have 1 employee other than family members. You can only have a sign that's no larger than 2 foot by 3 foot. I mean, there's a lot of, and they're different for every community. So you really got to make sure you read through everything. Don't just go to the end and sign, because you may be setting yourself up for a lot of loss just up before you get started. So check into it.
Yeah, and make sure that you've got all your neighbors on board with it too. Because I did the same thing you're talking about, conditional use permit, not a problem. And then not even a year after we built the addition for the studio, one of my crazy neighbors, who was kind of a friend, we were on friendly terms, kind of freaked out on me and has been basically a pain in my what, and been doing the old Amish shunning on us for 15 years now, since 2015. So when we walk outside, they turn their backs to us. They literally turn their backs. So then what do? We wave at them and go, "Steve, hey, Steve, hi." And they ignore us. So yeah, we're helping the problem, but you never know what kind of crazies you're going to end up living next to. And
you never know what's going to happen. But
well, and along those lines is, I guess, what we're all saying, and even with a retail space, is we are not attorneys, and we don't know the rules for each and every, disclaimer here, each and every community, but have,
but
maybe
I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Oh, well then.
So well, then we're good. Yeah. But maybe have an attorney take a look at any of your paperwork and be prepared, so that you can always refer back to that, like, hey, this is all legit, what we're doing. So yeah. And same thing with a lease. Like I said, like I had an attorney take a look at my lease, and like, is there, because it's all, you look at a lease, it's like, what's this mumbo jumbo legalese? We're making more words. Actually, I think that is a word, right?
Oh,
that is a word.
We're going with that.
Yeah. And it's like, what am I signing here? Because it's like, you're excited. I just want to, get shooting and focus on creative stuff. I don't want to worry about legal stuff or balancing a checkbook or figuring pricing out, right? That stuff is not fun, but it's so important.
We're photographers who, when we have the terms and conditions of every piece of software that we buy or rent or whatever, we just scroll to the bottom, accept. Has anybody ever read that? No.
Well, you know what, though? I mean, that's a good point, though. That I think we're all trying to get across, whether you're a residential studio or a brick and mortar. This is a business.
Right.
We are in a business, and you got to look at it that way. The facility, your insurance, your everything has to be thought through. It is a business. Don't take it lightly.
And this is going to be a whole different topic for us someday, but know your ratios.
Right.
What percent of your gross sales should go towards, overhead and capital expenditures and profit. Ooh, that could be a whole episode too.
I like that word.
I like profit.
Yeah.
Speaking of profit, a cool show is The Profit with Marcus Lemonis. If you want to learn about, he goes in and invests with other people and really breaks down the numbers, and it's very entertaining and interesting. You can learn a lot about business. So Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. Go
Is
ahead,
that a
Mr. Pop.
podcast or a TV show or
It's a TV show. I wish I knew the channel, like CNBC maybe. And you could probably stream it on, Netflix or whatever now, but it's called The Prophet by Marcus Lemonis. He's actually a graduate from Marquette. So yeah, it's and he goes in and invests, and it's all real live, not live. It's real investments. It's just real money that he's putting on the line, and it's a reality show, but it's like he's serious. Like, okay, this is what we need to do, or really helps you. Also, like he'll go in and these people have great ideas, but then you could see how entrepreneurs tend to get like crazy with things like, oh, we're doing really well, so we're going to open up another location, or hey, let's this is our core product, but let's make all these other products. And he goes in and just from a fresh eye says, you know what, these other products are not doing well, liquidate them, get rid of them, I don't care, we got to focus on this, or we need to now introduce a couple new products that really help, or close down this space immediately, sublease it out, you're losing money, it's draining your company, let's focus everything in here. And I think as photographers, I did that a couple of years ago. I'm like, I'm just going to focus on senior photography because that's what I love. And I'm not saying it's bad to do other types of photography, but if you're always chasing every little thing but not doing any one of them very well, is that really helping your business? Or if you're doing, say, boudoir photography and senior photography, well, is that a weird disconnect? And that little bit you may be bringing in boudoir, is that really help? How many seniors are you turning away? And if your averages on seniors are way higher, you may be best letting something go like that.
Gave me an idea though, because I think the new growth market is, you ready for this? Pet boudoir.
Well, I see
people
dogs
love
and
their
sweaters
pets
all the time.
You put them in tutus or boas, and
you heard it here first, folks. At the
boudoir.
This is what happens when you drink and you come up with ideas.
I have no excuse.
You know what?
It's coffee.
I guarantee you, I could take that and make some money with it. Probably not for a real long time, but definitely get some press. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good marketing is any press is good press. Is that it?
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Sure.
back to the studio stuff.
Yeah.
I was reeling it back in, guys.
Real back in.
So you guys, just out of curiosity, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're residential or brick and mortar. How do you, when people walk in, what do they see? Do they see photographs kind of leaning against the wall while you're waiting to hang them up? Or are they all hanging up? And what size did you go with? And what do you do in your studio to make it look like a studio and make it look like people are gonna think that they're gonna have to spend some money when they walk through the doors? What's kind of?
Yeah. I wish that's one thing I wish I would have built into my home studio. I wish I would have had a bigger kind of like almost like a lobby or entrance area, because you walk in, it's very well appointed, it's nice tile, it's white woodwork, it's vaulted ceilings up to 16 feet, huge bank of windows, but you take 10 steps in and you're actually in the camera room. But that's what people see. And the interesting effect of that, and I'll get to displaying products here in a second, but the interesting effect of that is when they walk in the door, they're seeing this big room, and they're seeing the vaulted ceiling, and they're seeing the huge bank of windows, and they're seeing all this equipment. Now, you guys have seen how much equipment I have. I have a lot of gear. And the net effect has been, the first thing they say to me is, wow, I had no idea that this was this big, or I had no idea that this was back here, because this wraps around the back of my house. So the expectations are weirdly kind of low when they show up, because it's a residential studio, and when they walk in, they're wowed. And then once they get in there, I have one huge wall that goes up to 16 feet or whatever, that has huge portraits on it. I've got a 60-inch print on there. I've got some 40-inch prints on there, and they'll turn to their left and they can see all these huge prints. And if they notice them and start talking about them, I'll play the "How big do you think that is?" game. And he's like, "How big do you think that family portrait is?" And I go, "What do you mean?" It's like, "How long do you think that is?" "I don't know, 30 inches." I go, "That's a 60-inch print." And then I'll do the whole psychology thing. Do you think that's an appropriate size? Because it's a family of, I think, 20 some people. And they look at it and go, "No, that looks just about right." Okay, so now you're showing the work, you're showing it appropriate size, and they're starting to pre-sell themselves on appropriate size and what size maybe their family portrait should be, or their senior portrait should be. And then I've got seniors up, and I've got some newborn stuff up. What I don't have hanging anywhere at all in my studio is headshots, but I do a lot of headshots. But people don't need to see headshots hanging in the studio. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody buys wall portraits of headshots.
You're right. And you're talking executive headshots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Business headshots. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so when you walk into my studio, like I said, we re-gutted the daycare and made it different. So there was a smaller hallway, and we made that hallway larger, so it was more of a gallery feel. So we widened that, and I have several 30 by 40 canvas gallery wraps as you walk in, and then a huge tiled metal print on the back of the wall. And I purposely chose images there that weren't senior images, actually, because I wanted imagery to, like, when they walked in, is to kind of be wowed and be like, this is going to be artistic. I wanted it to feel almost like an art gallery, and put my more creative images up, or I shouldn't say more creative, my more personal shoots that are like wild and crazy and super artistic. So they would have kind of a shock value and not just be like, hey, here, this is a senior portrait studio I'm walking into. This is something that's very artistic. And that idea kind of came from when I did start over too. Those are the images I really enjoyed and had. And I sent those images out to several people who knew me, people who didn't know me, people of all different ages. And the reoccurring feedback that I got was that it was super creative and artistic. And so I'm like, okay, these are the images I need to then show. And then, and then it kind of just goes from there. And they're large images. So kind of exactly what Michael was saying, having an area to display images that are large before they even get into my sales area, my sales room, then they can start to think wall size, or, start to think, okay, I need something larger for my wall than just an 8x10. So, that's my layout. And I have a separate room just for sales. And when I was looking for a studio, my number one goal was to have a place to do in-person sales. I didn't care about, and I call it a studio. I have a problem with calling things a camera room.
I do too.
Okay. Yeah. I know
the world is our camera room. So
yeah, right. So I always feel like, do you have a camera in there? So I call my camera room the studio. And then I call my, I don't even call it a sales room. It's just, kind of the meeting room. And that was the most important thing for me when I was looking for a space. I did want a place that I could shoot, because I, do composites and montages and stuff, and that still is indoor, as well as have the opportunity to do headshots and executives in anything else indoor. But my number one goal is, like, I knew if I had a cool space that we could meet and I could show samples and have a projection or a TV to sell, I knew that was the wisest investment in the space. And I did get lucky and have both. But yeah, I mean, being able to sell and let's kind of go off of that, I think, because maybe the people listening, you guys both have cool home studios and work out of the home, but what if someone doesn't have a space like for a camera room in their home? Let's kind of maybe go down that.
Well, in fact, it's funny you mentioned it, because I was just writing down notes. I said that's the space I wanted to go, because and it's fun, and we forget, because we are very fortunate. All three of us are very fortunate with the space that we have to work with, and I know there's people out there that like me who have a place that was, I mean, our whole, I started my business in an A-frame that we lived in. The whole A-frame was like 800 square feet. And we joke because our old home would fit in my camera room, my studio right now. So it's hilarious. But what do? I mean, you do what you can with the space you have, plain and simple. And as far as sales, you make sure that when it's a time that a customer is coming, a client is coming, that if you have to hang new stuff up before they get there, do it. You know, put something big behind the couch so that it makes it size appropriate. You can redecorate before your guests get there, I guess is what I'm saying, to make sure that it's doing your best to sell. As far as photographing, you don't need a studio, a camera room, so to speak. The world is a place to photograph, and if you want to do it inside, say a traditional kind of thing, if you have a garage with a garage door opener or open that garage, that's a great window. It's a beautiful light source. As long as you use it on times of day when the sun isn't shining in there, more than you just schedule around it. But it's a beautiful place. You hang up a background on the side of it, and you're golden right there. If you have lights, use them in the garage. Just pull that car out and make it happen. There's places you can work in small areas or less than wonderful. Like I said, that we're fortunate to have the three of us. But make it happen. You can do it.
Yeah, and on that note too, that's one of the things that drove me to build the Edition was uh, the business was growing, and had a little studio down in my basement, but I would meet with clients in our living room. And we had a nice living room. We had a nice formal living room, but every time I had a meeting, if I was meeting with a potential bride and groom, I had to make sure it was cleaned up and had to get wedding albums out, and I'd put wedding portraits on easels and all that kind of stuff. So that got to be a pain in the butt. And then on top of that, we had kids. I started that full time in 2001. I had a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old at that time. So then what do you do with the kids? And the kids have to go someplace else and have to be quiet. And our kitchen is very near to our living room. So we had to be careful about making meals, around the time or near when we were going to have consultations, because, you didn't want to be making some crazy smelling dish. And then, you've got potential customers walking in and smelling that. So, and I think just about any photographer who's worked from home has faced this.
Yeah.
And that's when you find kind of the impetus is like, I either need to find a retail space or I need to find a separate space. And that's why when we built on and did the Edition, we have a separate entrance for that. There's a nice double French door that goes from our family room into the studio, but we can close that. It's got blinds on it, or actually it's got curtains on it, and got a whole separate furnace, whole separate air conditioning. So the HVAC for the studio in the office entirely is different. I could be roasting yaks in my kitchen, and you would never know in my studio because there's no air exchange between the two. Carl's going,
how often do you
yaks.
roast yaks?
Well, right around the time of Yak Fest, which is usually late June.
I guess
if we keep drinking, there's going to be a Yak Fest here.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I've looked into quite recently is shared space. Larger cities have studio share space, but almost every place I think now can have a business shared space, which is very affordable because you're splitting a lot of the fees or the costs of, like, say, internet, or some of them even have a receptionist, copy machines, fax machines. Who uses a fax machine? I don't know, but they have some shared expenses there. Or I think a lot of people too, if you reach out, to other businesses, if they do like a 9 to 5 and you just want a place to go in to do in-person sales, I always suggest this when I do my in-person sales, like webinars, is reach out to businesses and maybe you rent that office, for a few hours, and it doesn't have to be every night. If you bank your sales appointments and efficient with your time, you could do 2 or 3 in a night. And it's, a lot of businesses would, other than liability stuff, would probably let you do that. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, it helps defray their cost of whatever their rent is, and yeah, again, you'd have to work out the paperwork and work out the liability insurance on it. But if you're going in there and you're meeting with a couple to talk to them about a wedding or to do an IPS session for seniors, what kind of liability you got going on there, and hopefully people aren't wielding knives and throwing coffee mugs, and at least not often.
I mean, yeah, you never know. I mean, that's why I don't do weddings, those.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
No, just kidding. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options, and I know there are some people who will do sales in the client's home, so they'll come and they'll have samples of albums and canvases and things they can touch and see and smell and feel, and you can hold up on their wall or project right on their wall, and you can never use that. They can't use that excuse of, I don't have wall space. It's like, oh, look at right over here.
Yeah. Yeah, I see 11 dead deer on your wall. Certainly we could take that 4-pointer down and put a portrait up there.
And the wife goes, yes, I've been waiting for them to say that.
Yeah. I've actually had the wife say that in a sales session with seniors, because the dad's saying, well, there's no place in our house, and she's like, you've got animal heads everywhere. I need a wall. Just give me a wall.
Exactly.
It happens.
One wall.
It happens.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. And what was the cost of that animal head compared to the 20 by 30 doesn't seem so expensive now, does it?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, you can make all the different cons into pros. You just got to be creative with it. That's all. I mean, a lot of people that I knew of used to rent a hotel room at a fancy place in their location. They used to have consultations and sales and image presentations there. But man, if you purchased, if you have kids and you don't want to be, like Michael said, and we went through the same thing with our kids, trying to schedule time so that the kids weren't involved with your guests. But if you can time it all right, you can maybe make it into a positive, or get buy a projector. So, I mean, have a projector and be able to travel with it. I mean, that would be a wonderful service for your guests. What a customized service for your guests that they don't even have to leave their own home. You go right to them, project right on your wall, right above your couch. And I'm sorry, but most couches, they really do require at least a 60-inch image behind it. But they don't get it. People, I mean, you can tell them the math, you can show them the math in your studio, until they see it in their own home, they don't get it. They're not as visual as we are, and you're missing it. They're missing the point. So I think maybe I should change to that. I mean, I have a nice image presentation room and right here, but maybe I should go back to visiting everybody's homes, because that is more of a customized service that we can provide. Sure. And maybe we get better sales because, like Michael said, I mean, you don't have any space. Right there is space. I can see it. I'll put the image on it right now. Can't argue with that. So
end up becoming like a design consultant for them then too, because then I think, Dan, maybe you brought this up one other time we were talking, not during the podcast here, but you can see what kind of colors they have in their house, and you can then, if you do a consultation there, then you can kind of tailor some of the stuff you shoot towards whatever color scheme or whatever design they have going on in there. Yeah, entirely. One thing I've always wanted to go along with that, because I've always thought that was a good idea to do IPS in the homes potentially for those reasons. The problem I've always had is showing the actual product to get them to get in love with the actual product at the actual size. But here's an idea, crazy idea. I only have crazy ideas. You guys know that. You have to shoot them down all the time. Because if you want to sell a 40 by 60, you can't really carry a 40 by 60 into everybody's house. What if you had a foldable canvas, like a gallery wrap canvas that could fold up, and they could walk in and go,
just like an army cot, except for a wall.
Exactly.
You know what? I can do that. I will make you one. This is going to be great.
You go.
You roll that sucker up, stretch it out, pop the ends on it. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And it's
Well,
like, here's your 40 by 60.
No, this is it. You make it like the reflectors. It's like whoop, and it
Yeah.
flops out, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's even
you have
better.
the
I like
different
that.
sizes, and they fold it back up.
There
You
it
get
is.
the really large, except for those changing booths. Those are
Right.
those
Also-
have a those are a little bit more difficult to fold
They're
up.
horrible.
Pull back up. Yeah.
They're absolutely
Yeah.
horrible.
Very
I've got
first time
one.
I saw one of those,
No, I was gonna say I've got one that I still have never gotten all the way back together yet. So it's about half popped up, and it's half the reason I even bought a truck so I could fit it in the truck bed.
Yeah, that's what I've done. I can't figure this out. Just throw it in,
Throw it in the back.
fold it in half and throw it in. We'll get to it, and then
Figure it out
it's
later.
just flopping around as you're driving to the next location.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's the fun part about this business, it doesn't matter whether you're residential or brick and mortar. I mean, a lot of what we do is on location. A lot of our creations are on location. So like I said before, the world is our camera room. And, that's why we have people seatbelted in, because when you're driving around, you see something cool, you hit the brakes and you stop there and go play. And, but it's always different. And that's the unique part about, in my case, having the home studio now. My wife keeps saying, well, you're hardly ever in there anymore. Why are we even here? I'm going, it's a darn good question. Because most things that we're doing are on location nowadays. So, make things portable. And that's why, I like the equipment that we're working with now, because it's portable for wherever I want to go and call my camera room and call my studio. And it allows me to do that. And now, like we were just talking, I'm convincing myself right now to not have people come in for my image presentation room anymore. I think I'm going to go back to their place if they want it. And that's something too, by the way. Make sure your guests are comfortable with that, because some people would still rather go to your place. So don't push that. Just kind of feel it out. Know your guests.
Absolutely. I think it's good to have it as an option.
Yeah, have it like an option, because like you said, like some of the downfalls you were talking about, kids and stuff. So if they have the kids and they feel like, oh, someone's coming here, I need to clean the house, the kids need to be, on their best behavior or whatever. It might be an inconvenience, but so kind of set it up as, hey, this could be a convenience. I could help you with some things, or they, leave it up to them. Yeah, because that might actually hurt. Like, oh no.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier, and it cuts both ways depending on the client. Sometimes it's easier for them to get a babysitter or leave the kids with the grandparents and come and be able to focus in your sales room and actually focus and look at the images and make the decision. So I still like the idea as an option. So either or, because it's more customer oriented, and people like choices. They don't like too many choices, but they like choices.
Yeah, and there's also technology that is like we're doing this right here. You guys can't see us, we can see each other, but there's tons of technology out there, via Skype, Zoom meetings, GoToMeeting, where you can do these remotely, or if you have clients from different states that come in, you can still do your in-person sales via technology of these video meeting rooms. It's not quite the same as real in person or going right to their home or them coming to your studio, but it is an option. And one thing I've learned through the years is it's easy for me personally to make excuses like, oh, I don't have a studio, or, oh, I don't have this piece of equipment, or, oh, I wish I had this, wish I had that. But then it's kind of, don't make those excuses. Like, kind of suck it up and be like, okay, what can I do? And it's like, okay, headshots. I don't have a studio. Okay, I'm going to come to your business and do headshots right there. Make it convenient for them. And they're like, oh, okay, or, hey, I'll come and, help you design in your home because I don't have a studio. Is that okay with you? So, it's easy to look at what everyone else has and to make excuses, but be creative. We're creative individuals, and turn those negatives into positives and say, okay, I'm going to do this. This is going to be my thing. I'm going to be a destination shooter because I don't, what? It's cold in Wisconsin. So let's go shoot seniors in the winter in Florida and in Hawaii and in Arizona
There
and
must be
do all that stuff.
seniors. There must be seniors in Cancun. I mean, seriously, there's got to be seniors there.
Yeah. Well,
they're seniors.
Oh well.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Sociable.
Sociable.
Everybody drink on that one.
Drink.
1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila, floor.
Exactly. So no, along with that though, make sure that yes, you can make it happen anywhere. You can make a studio out of anything or anywhere, but be professional about this. Like I said before at the beginning, this is a business and we got to run it that way. Even on our service side of things. So if you're going to go off on location, make sure you have equipment and the backgrounds and stands and everything you're going to need and portable to get to those locations. Don't show up and sit there with duct tape holding things together and look, although I do that. Okay, duct tape is cool up here. I mean, that's, but this is the UP, you see, and duct tape is just a known, it's a normal everyday thing for everybody. But look professional, have the right kind of lighting, or like I said, the stands that you need, or whatever it is that would work for what you want to do on their location. Don't show up and then sit there for an hour scratching your head in front of them. Make sure you look business and look the part.
Yeah, and be ready to go. Always be ready to go and be professional. You got it.
I was going to say, so contradicting everything I just said before, or maybe it's not a contradiction.
Here we go.
But I'm going to
counterpoint by Dan.
Right. I'm going to throw this out there because it's a conversation that comes up quite often in our family when I talk about doing a home studio. And it's like, is there a certain, Carl said professionalism, but does it help justify pricing a little bit more having a retail space? And even though, like you guys, it's not home studio, it's a retail, what'd you call it? Retail
residential studio, but it's dedicated space
it's dedicated
purely studio.
Yeah. So it's similar. So I'm going to pose that question or make kind of think is like, does my space, because it's a brick and mortar set apart, I have the signage and everything, which you guys do as well. Does that add any like psychological
worth
advantage to or worth? Like, hey, because I've heard that like people like, oh, you're a legit photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I think it does. I think at a certain point in the relationship, it no longer matters, but I think initially it does. And hence back to like one of my opening statements was things I hear from my clients when the first time they walk through the door, they're surprised in a good way. But that tells me that they weren't expecting this, even though they go to the website, they see all this, I think, really nice work, really professional work, and it's all presented very nicely, and all the copy is very professional. That's what my background was. But I think coming to the house, because we don't have a McMansion, it's not a huge impressive house. It's a nice house, but it's not a huge impressive house. So they walk up, separate sidewalk to the entrance, and I think that they aren't expecting a whole lot. And when they walk through the door, it's like, oh, okay. So that's shifted. They're starting to shift their perception. Whereas in a nice retail studio like yours, Dan, it's already there, and then it's even more reinforced once they walk through the door and see that nice gallery.
Yeah, and coming back around to kind of what we started with as well is, I think, if you're just starting out, I guess my advice would be it's okay to work from home and be creative and get this. As you start to build up clientele and you start to outgrow that, like kind of some of the things you guys mentioned that kind of happen, okay, then decide, are we going to add on to our home and make it a more professional space? Or are you going to maybe rent a shared space for a while and see how that goes? But just make sure that you're, again, looking at the numbers and be like, okay, have I grown enough to justify making that step? And is that step going to help increase my sales by X amount? Well, I know as creatives, including myself, you get excited and it's like, oh, it'd be awesome to have a space and have all this and all that. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, how am I going to pay for all this?
You do all that. And then that year, your profits are down 50%.
Well, exactly. Back to looking at this as a business. Michael was just talking about, are the clients thinking that it's going to be cheaper because we're going to somebody's house, and we're going to save money because we're going there opposed to going to a brick and mortar place? No, make sure people understand that they're buying a service. Doesn't matter where you're going to get it, and you need to get over. We all have to get over that. I don't care if you're working out of your home or out of a tent. You got to think of your space as a commercial space. And if you look in your area and say, okay, if I were to go and purchase or to rent a space, lease a space, it's this much per square feet. Okay, think of your space as you need to overcome that each month too. And so you need to make sure that you're pricing your products and your services to overcome that. I mean, don't just say, well, we live here anyhow, so we're just not going to count that. No, count it, because it needs to be accounted for. So yeah,
let's do the math on that real quick for people. I mean, because a lot of people don't know the math. So let's say you're looking at a retail space and it's going to cost you $1,500 a month. How much more gross revenue do you need to bring in to cover that cost? And if you're going just roughly from some PPA business guidelines, so a third of your cost should be overhead. So you'd have to generate an extra $4,500 a month based on that in gross revenue to help offset that additional overhead cost. And that's, 4,500 times 12 is a lot. Let's say it's 4,000. You can do that math.
You told me there would be no math during these.
So that's an extra 48,000 for the year. Are you really confident that your business can pull in an extra $48,000 to $50,000 for that coming year to cover that additional overhead cost?
Yeah, that's $54,000 a year.
Yeah, not only that, like I know PPA, like you mentioned earlier, has different percentages for profit if you have a retail, home studio or a retail space. And usually when I teach it, I say, well, always factor as though you have a retail space, because ultimately that may be something you're going to grow into. And then if you're pricing, if you have to like raise your prices so dramatically to offset that, you're going to lose some clients. So try and or every year raise your prices a little bit, so that when you do build to get to that retail space, you don't lose half your clients overnight. You're like, oh, I got a retail space. Okay, I have to jack my prices up. Well, now all of a sudden you lost half your clients.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, you got any parting shots?
Oh, we're doing shots again. See, every time it comes up. Jeez.
Shots.
No, I'm good. I think some good information here, and I think I learned a lot from this. So I hope everybody else did.
Like I said, a lot of good information, different perspectives from three of us who have slightly different types of retail space. So hopefully this helped and we didn't confuse you more by do this, no, do that.
But wait, there's more.
Let's sum it up a little bit. I mean, I think there were some overriding concepts there, and one was know your numbers. Know your numbers. Treat it like a business. It's got to be a business. So, and that ties back to the numbers. If you're going to go retail, make sure that you can have the revenue, or the increase in revenue will be worthwhile to make it pay to be retail. If you're going to be a home studio, you need to look into all the laws and the permits
and the insurance
and zoning and the insurance, and talk to your neighbors and think about the actual process. If it's going to be a spot in your main home that you're going to have to clean up and get set up every time, or if you're going to have a dedicated space, all those things go into it. So make sure that you're taking the time and thinking through all those things before you make that decision. So that's what I've got for a parting shot. Till next time, thank you guys for listening to the Photo Happy Hour.
Cheers.
And this Photo Happy Hour is brought to you by Spotted Cow Beer. Spotted Cow, because you can't get it unless you live in Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Last call.
You've been listening to the Photo Happy Hour podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss a single action-packed episode. And join our Photo Happy Hour Facebook group, where we'll post links to the stuff we all talk about. You can find my MoLight gear online at www.gomolight.com. That's MOLIGHT.com. You can find the Facebook page under MoLight Store, and I also run the Godox Flash Help Group on Facebook. You can find Dan's Senior Unlocked website at www.seniorsunlocked.com. That's seniors with an S at the end, unlocked.com, and the Facebook group under Seniors Unlocked. And you can find Carl's Coaching Corner at www.ccphotocoach.com, ccphotocoach.com. Till next time, cheers to you.